Okay, let's just start with this. Could you imagine having the power, like the absolute power, to save your own child from immense suffering, but choosing not to?
It's a tough thought.
It really is. And standing there, watching it happen, that kind of, agonizing restraint. That's really the core of what we're diving into today.
Yeah. We're looking at the crucifixion, obviously, but trying to get under the surface.
Exactly, to understand the cost, not just for Jesus, but for God the Father.
And the sources you gathered, they're quite moving. Blog posts, personal reflections, people really wrestling with this.
Even spoken word stuff, video scripts, all hitting the same theme.
Definitely. The Father's sacrifice, the sheer emotional weight of it comes through loud and clear.
So our mission today in this deep dive is really to explore that, the multifaceted cost to God.
To move beyond just, Jesus died for our sins as a simple transaction.
Yeah, get into the relational side, the emotional impact on the Father. But where do we even begin with something this huge?
Well, I think a good starting point, something that comes up again and again in the sources, is this idea of divine restraint.
Restraint.
God is all-powerful, right? He could have stopped it any second.
Infinite power at his fingertips.
But he chose not to. And a key reason, referenced in the sources, comes from Psalm 138, verse 2.
You have magnified your word above all your name.
Exactly. It speaks to God's integrity. His word isn't just, optional.
Right. It's like the foundation of everything. One source put it really well. God couldn't just ignore the consequences he himself established for sin.
Which leads straight to Romans 6, verse 23.
The wages of sin is death. Clear as day.
It wasn't arbitrary. It was tied to his justice, his very nature.
But then the incredible love part comes in.
Yes. God sending himself in Jesus.
John 1, verse 14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us.
And we have seen his glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. He sent himself.
Not just a messenger.
No. And John 10, verse 30 makes that unity explicit. I and the Father are one.
So Jesus wasn't just a substitute. He was God. God in human form.
Precisely. Which makes the agony he endured just staggering.
It really does. From Gethsemane to Golgotha, the sources, they don't hold back on the details.
No, they don't. Think about the garden. Luke 22, verse 44.
Oh, the sweat like drops of blood.
Sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. That's more than stress, That's deep, deep anguish. Physical manifestation.
And all the while, the Father is watching.
Watching and holding back. That's the point. The sources keep making God's own justice required him not to intervene.
One source mentioned the angels, poised, ready to strike.
Imagine that, legions of angels, ready, but commanded to stand down.
Because of God's commitment to his own word, his justice.
Incredible restraint. And then there's the humiliation Jesus faced.
Brutal, the mocking, the beatings.
Stripping of dignity. And remember Colossians 1, verse 16, he created everything.
Everything, including the very people inflicting this pain.
To see the Creator treated like that by his creation, it's almost unbearable to think about.
It highlights the depth of the sacrifice, doesn't it? Not just physical pain.
No, it was total rejection, utter contempt.
Which brings us to that moment, the cry from the cross.
Ah, yes. Matthew 27, verse 46.
My God, why have you forsaken me?
That cry echoes, doesn't it, across all the sources, the pain in that.
For the first time ever, that perfect fellowship broken.
Shattered. And the consistent, almost chilling message is, God did not step in.
Heaven was silent.
That silence itself, it feels like a core part of the cost. A silence that must have felt deafening.
Okay, so someone listening might think, well, if Jesus rose again, how is that really a sacrifice?
That's a fair question, and several sources tackle it directly.
And the answer really lies in the definition of sacrifice.
Exactly. It's defined by the cost involved. The price paid during the act, not just the final outcome.
Like John 15, verse 13 says, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends.
The laying down. The willing endurance of that separation, that agony, that's the sacrifice.
The resurrection is the victory after the cost was paid. It doesn't negate the cost.
Absolutely not. And it's so crucial to emphasize, as the sources do, that Jesus laid down his life.
Voluntarily.
The Father watched. In silence.
That's silence again. Wasn't it different?
No, it was deliberate. A withholding of power, driven by this immense love.
One source described Jesus' death not just as paying a debt, but as surrendering his divine rights.
Yes. for redemption. Philippians chapter 2, verses 6 through 8 really capture this.
Right, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped,
But emptied himself by taking the form of a servant.
being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself,
By becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross.
from the highest heights to the lowest depths.
Willingly. So when you step back, the sheer scale of what God the Father endured, watching his Son,
His very essence, I and the Father are one.
watching him be scourged, spat on, mocked, dragged, crucified, the abuse was relentless.
Some sources try to put words to the Father's toll, though it feels almost impossible.
Yeah, phrases like, God wasn't God in that moment, meaning the just judge couldn't act as he normally would.
Or, heaven watched as the enemy dragged God. Descriptions of Jesus being unrecognizable, broken.
All attempts to grasp the Father's anguish, witnessing that.
It forces you to think, what does it mean for God to not act? To seemingly suspend his intervening nature?
Right. The sources stress how unique this was. Angels standing down, God not fighting back.
Heaven holding its breath.
A singular moment where God's usual action was held in check for a greater purpose.
So, bringing it back to the listener, why does this matter to us now?
Why should you care about this ancient event, this divine cost?
The answer, loud and clear from everything we've looked at, is love.
Just love. God endured that silence, that separation because of his love for us.
For you, so that you could be called his child. Romans 5 verse 8 says it so well. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were his enemies, essentially.
And Romans 8 verse 32 builds on that. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things?
It highlights the extent of that love demonstrated right there.
He gave his absolute best, his very self, when we deserve nothing.
God stayed silent while his son screamed. That's what it cost him.
That's what love looks like. Raw, painful, sacrificial love.
The resurrection, absolutely. It's the ultimate victory. No question.
But maybe just sit with this for a while. Consider the immeasurable love shown in the Father's silence that day.
What does it mean for you, personally, knowing God willingly endured that kind of anguish, holding back his power for your sake?
It's something worth reflecting on long after this deep dive is over. Thank you for watching. Please support the work of this channel. Like this video and share. Subscribe to get notified when new videos are posted. I would like to know your thoughts on this topic. Please share them in the comments section. We can learn and grow together. If you have a topic you would want us to discuss, please send us an email. God bless you.